My wife had an affair with her boss and we fought over a $250, $0 inheritance she secretly claims I stole. Now she's threatening to sue me and claim everything we owned was a sham. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story about how my wife turned out to be cheating on me with her boss, of all people. It all happened so suddenly, like a bomb exploded in my life out of nowhere. The most shocking thing, the whole thing came crashing down right after I found out she's been lying about a $250, $0 inheritance she claims I stole from her. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, it's all tangled up in one big mess of betrayal, deception, and revenge. And I had been together for about 10 years. We met in college, got married right after she finished her MBA, and for the most part, things seemed good. She was always a little bitchy, quick to throw a tantrum if she didn't get her way, but I figured that was just her personality. She loved to spend money, designer bags, luxury vacations, the best restaurants, and she always acted like she deserved it all. I worked hard as an accountant, bringing in a decent income, and I thought we were solid. I never suspected she'd cheat on me, especially not with her boss, Robert. It all started subtly. Had been acting strangely for a few months. She'd come home later than usual, saying she was working late or meeting with clients. She'd delete texts on her phone, and I'd catch her lying about where she was. But I didn't push her. I figured maybe she was stressed or had a new project at work. Then, about 2 weeks ago, I noticed her phone kept ringing at odd hours, and she'd quickly hide it when I entered the room. I also found a few flirty texts, nothing explicit, but enough to set off warning bells. The real shock came when I accidentally came across her email. I was working late one night, using her laptop to check some work stuff, and I saw an email thread between her and Robert. They were talking about meetings, secrets, and how they couldn't keep their hands off each other. My stomach dropped. I read through the entire exchange, how Robert was telling her she was the only one who truly understood him, and she responded with things like, "Can't wait to see you tonight, and I've never felt this way before." I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I trusted, was cheating on me with her boss. That was the moment everything changed. I felt numb, then furious. I didn't confront her right away, I needed to think, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. She had been lying to my face all this time, pretending to be the perfect wife, the loving partner, and now I had proof. I sat there, staring at her emails, trying to process what I'd just read. It was like I was in some bad movie, waiting for the part where everything falls apart. The betrayal cut deep, worse than I expected. I thought about all the nights I stayed up worrying about her, all the times I told myself she was just stressed, just busy. Turns out she was busy screwing her boss. The next day I decided I couldn't keep quiet. I waited until she got home from work, then confronted her in the living room. I told her I knew about the affair. She looked surprised, like she didn't think I'd find out, which was laughable. She rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, come on, it's not what you think. Robert and I, it's just sex, it's not serious. You're overreacting." She tried to brush it off, acting like I was crazy for even bringing it up, but I wasn't buying it. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Don't lie to me. I saw the emails. I know what you've been doing." Her reaction was a mix of anger, defiance, and a little bit of that bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was in control. "You're just jealous," she snapped. "Robert's the one who truly understands me. You're boring and you don't give me what I need. Maybe I should just leave then. You're not the man I thought you were." That's when I felt a cold wave of realization. She'd been planning to leave me, or maybe she was just trying to get her claws into Robert even more. Either way, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her walk all over me, especially not after I found out she'd been lying about the inheritance too. Speaking of that inheritance, that's another story. She's been claiming I stole $250, $0 from her, which is total nonsense. She's been threatening to sue me, saying everything we own is a sham, that I've been secretly hiding money. But I know she's been hiding her own secrets. She's been spending money like crazy, Luxury handbags, trips, designer clothes, and I've never said a word. It's like she's been living in her own fantasy world, lying to everyone, including herself. That's why I decided I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I needed a plan, a way to fight back. I had a feeling this was just the beginning, and I was ready to take her down a notch if I had to. I don't trust her anymore, not after what I saw, and I definitely don't trust Robert. The betrayal has left me feeling sick, betrayed, and angry, all at once. But I'm not going down without a fight. I'll tell you, this story is just starting, and I've got a lot more to say about what happened next. After that confrontation, everything changed. His attitude shifted from dismissive to downright hostile. She started throwing around accusations, claiming I was paranoid, jealous, and insecure. She insisted that Robert was just a friend, that I was overreacting because I couldn't handle her success or her independence. But I knew better. I had the proof, those emails, the secret meetings, the late nights, and the worst part. She was now trying to turn everything around on me as if I was the one cheating or lying. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I'd always thought we had a solid foundation, but now I saw everything for what it was, a house built on lies. I started digging into her finances, trying to figure out what she was hiding. Turns out, she's been squirreling away money from the inheritance she claimed I stole. She's been talking to lawyers, planning to sue me for theft, and even threatening to drag me through court if I didn't give her what she wanted. That's when I realized. Her whole plan was to drain me financially, and she'd probably been doing this for months, maybe longer. The inheritance issue was a big part of it. She kept claiming I stolen her money, but I never touched a penny. I worked hard, paid all the bills, and she had her own savings, her own investments. Still, she insisted that I was a liar and a thief. She even hired a lawyer and started gathering evidence, trying to make me look bad. I found out she'd been secretly talking to a lawyer behind my back, preparing a case to say I'd been embezzling or hiding assets. It was like living in a nightmare where everything I thought was real was suddenly turned upside down. Meanwhile, his behavior became more and more bitchy. She'd lash out at me for the smallest things, calling me insecure, jealous, or pathetic. She'd throw tantrums over dinner, accuse me of spying on her, and say I was just a boring, dull husband who couldn't satisfy her anymore. That's when I realized she was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt myself. But I refused to let her. I had the emails, the bank statements, and the proof of her lies. I knew I had to act fast before she completely destroyed me. I started secretly recording her conversations, just in case I needed them later. I also contacted a lawyer of my own, someone who specialized in financial disputes and infidelity cases. I needed to protect myself, and I knew was dangerous. She'd already threatened to ruin me, and I had no doubt she'd do it. She's always been good at twisting stories, making herself the victim, and I knew she'd try to spin this entire mess into a woman-wronged story if she had to. One night, she came home late again, smelling of perfume and alcohol. I was sitting in the living room, pretending to watch TV, but I kept my eye on her. She stormed in, slamming the door behind her. She looked annoyed and frustrated, like she'd just come from a meeting with Robert. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but she played it cool. She started with her usual bitchy attitude, snapping at me for accusing her of cheating, and then she tried to change the subject. But I wasn't having it anymore. I told her I knew everything, about Robert, about the emails, about the money she'd been hiding. Her face twisted into a sneer. "You're just jealous, that's all. Robert's a real man, not some boring accountant like you. You're nothing but a little man trying to control everything." She spat it out like she was proud of her little victory, but I saw the fear behind her eyes. She knew I wasn't backing down. That's when she threw out her biggest lie yet, that I'd been secretly stealing from her, that I'd been embezzling money from her inheritance, and that she was going to take me to court and get everything I owned. I felt my blood boil. I'd been working my ass off for years to build a life, and now she was trying to destroy it with her lies. I realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let her keep dragging me down. I started planning my revenge, not just to clear my name, but to make her pay for the betrayal. I knew she'd try to spin this into a poor victim story, but I had enough evidence to shut her down. I kept calm, pretended to listen, but secretly I was already making moves. I contacted my lawyer, gathered my documents, and prepared for what I knew would be a long, ugly fight. The next few days were a whirlwind. Kept pushing, accusing me of everything under the sun, but I stayed cool. I knew her game. She wanted to make me look like the bad guy so she could walk away with the inheritance, the house, everything. But I wasn't going down that easy. I had my own plans. I started digging deeper into her financial records, looking for inconsistencies, hidden accounts, anything I could use against her. I also decided I'd confront her publicly if I had to, expose her lies to everyone, our friends, her family. I wasn't going to let her destroy me without a fight. And then out of nowhere, she made her move. She threatened me outright, said she'd sue me for theft, that she'd take everything I own if I didn't cooperate. I knew then I had to be ready for whatever was coming. I couldn't let her win, not after everything. I realized I'd been naive to trust her so blindly, but now I was determined to take control. The betrayal cut deep, but I was starting to see the bigger picture. This wasn't just about her cheating or money, it was about who I was willing to be after all this. And I wasn't going down without a fight. After her latest threat, I knew I had to act fast. She was playing dirty, throwing around accusations that I was some kind of embezzler, trying to tarnish my reputation while she plotted her next move. I couldn't let her get away with it. I started gathering every shred of evidence I could find: bank statements, emails, texts, even recordings of her conversations when I was sure she wasn't aware. I wanted to build a case, not just to clear my name, but also to show her that I wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. Meanwhile, his attitude became even more bitchy and aggressive. She started throwing tantrums over the smallest things. If I was a minute late coming home, she'd accuse me of cheating or hiding something. If I looked at her wrong, she'd snap back with some snide comment about how I was a pathetic excuse for a husband. It was like living with a ticking time bomb. Her lies were piling up, and her constant accusations made me question everything: myself, her, our entire marriage. One night I decided to confront her directly, in a way that I hoped would make her realize I wasn't going to play her game anymore. I sat her down in the living room, looked her straight in the eyes, and told her I knew about Robert, about her affair, and about her scheme to ruin me financially. Her face twisted with anger, but I kept my composure. I told her that I had all the evidence and that I was planning to fight back, not just to protect myself, but to expose her lies. That's when she really snapped. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" she spat. "You're just a boring little man who's wasting his time. Robert's the one who truly understands me. You're nothing compared to him." Her words hit me hard, but I refused to let her see how much she hurt me. I responded calmly, telling her that her lies and betrayal had gone too far. I warned her that I was ready to go to court, to fight for what's mine, and to make sure everyone knew the truth about her. That night she stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. I sat alone in the dark, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and determination. I knew she was dangerous, and I had to be smarter. I started talking to a lawyer the very next morning, someone who specialized in financial disputes and infidelity cases. I explained everything I'd found, handed over my evidence, and asked for advice. I told him about her threats, her plans to sue me, and her attempt to claim I stolen her inheritance. The lawyer was clear. I needed to document everything, keep my distance, and prepare for a legal battle. Had become unpredictable, and I couldn't trust her anymore. I also started secretly recording her phone calls, just in case she tried to deny her actions or spin stories. I wanted to be ready for whatever she threw at me. I knew she was capable of twisting the truth to make herself look innocent, but I had enough solid proof to counter her lies. In the days that followed, his attitude got even more bitchy and aggressive. She'd call me names, accuse me of being a terrible husband, and claim I was just jealous of Robert. She said I was insecure and that I couldn't handle her success. But I knew better. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me, to make me doubt myself so she could get away with everything. I refused to let her control me anymore. One evening, she came home with a new designer bag, acting like she was the queen of the world. She threw it on the bed and looked at me with that smirk she always wore when she thought she'd won. That's when I decided enough was enough. I told her I was done playing her games. I told her I had all the evidence, that I was going to fight her in court, and that she wouldn't get away with destroying my reputation or stealing what's mine. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, claiming I was ruining her life, that I was the one who was cheating and hiding money. She said she'd sue me for defamation, for trying to ruin her, and that she'd take everything I owned if I didn't back off. I could see the desperation in her eyes. But I also saw the fear. She knew I was serious. I was finally taking control of this mess. I realized that her threats were just a desperate attempt to keep her power, to make me back down. But I wasn't going to let her. I had enough to expose her, enough to fight back. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready. I'd come to the point where I was sick of being the victim, sick of her lies, and tired of feeling helpless. This was about standing up for myself, about reclaiming what was mine, and about making sure she paid for the betrayal she'd committed. I don't know how this will end, but I do know one thing: she can't keep running from the truth forever. And I'm done hiding mine. The next few days were a whirlwind. Predictably, doubled down on her bitchy attitude. She was throwing tantrums over the smallest things, snapping at me for looking at her wrong, accusing me of spying, calling me insecure and pathetic every chance she got. It was like living with a tornado of lies and accusations. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was boiling. I knew her game. She was trying to break me down, make me doubt myself, so she could spin her lies even more convincingly. Meanwhile, I was digging deeper into her finances. I needed to find the smoking gun, the proof that she was hiding money, that she was planning to manipulate the inheritance or even make false claims against me. I found some suspicious bank transfers, some offshore accounts she never mentioned, and a series of payments to lawyers I didn't recognize. Every new discovery made me more certain she was scheming to take everything I had. It was clear she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She was a master manipulator, and I'd underestimated her. One night, I decided I'd had enough of her lies. I sat her down again, this time more directly. I told her I knew about her affair with Robert, about her plans to sue me, and about her secret accounts. I told her I had enough evidence to expose her, and I was prepared to go to court if necessary. Her eyes widened for a moment, then she sneered and started denying everything. She claimed I was just jealous, that Robert was just a friend, and that I was imagining things. That's when I snapped. "You've been lying to me from the start," I said. "I've seen your emails, your texts. I know about Robert, and I know about the inheritance. You've been planning to screw me over all along." She looked furious, then suddenly broke into tears. Her voice cracked as she spat. "You're just a boring, insecure little man. Robert is the only one who truly understands me. You're nothing compared to him." That's when I realized her real game. She was trying to paint herself as the victim, the wronged wife, so she could twist everyone's perception. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done playing her games, that I was going to fight her in court and make her pay for everything she'd done. I was tired of her lies, her tantrums, her accusations. I knew I had enough evidence to turn the tables, to show everyone who the real culprit was. I also made sure to record her outbursts, just in case she tried to deny her behavior later. I wanted to be ready for the legal battle ahead. Next day, I hired a lawyer who specialized in these kinds of cases. I explained everything: her affair, her threats, her hidden accounts, the inheritance issue. I handed over my evidence, and we started preparing for a fight. I knew she'd try to spin it all against me, but I had enough to counter her lies. I also started documenting everything more meticulously, saving emails, taking screenshots of bank statements, recording her calls when possible. I wanted to build a rock-solid case. Meanwhile's attitude got even more aggressive. She'd call me names, accuse me of being a terrible husband, and claim I was just insecure because I couldn't satisfy her. She said I was jealous of Robert, that I was a pathetic little man who was wasting his time trying to control her. I could see she was trying to gaslight me, to make me doubt myself so she could get her way. But I refused to let her manipulate me anymore. I was done playing her game. One evening, she came home with a new designer bag, acting like she was the queen of the world. She threw it on the bed and looked at me with that smirk she always wore when she thought she'd won. That's when I decided enough was enough. I told her I was done pretending, that I knew her secrets, and that I was going to expose everything: her affair, her lies, her scheming. I told her she wasn't going to get away with destroying my reputation or stealing what's mine. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, claiming I was ruining her life, that I was the one who'd been cheating and hiding money. She said she'd sue me for defamation for trying to ruin her, and that she'd take everything I owned if I didn't back off. I could see the desperation in her eyes, but I also saw the fear. She knew I was serious. I told her she could threaten all she wanted, but I had the evidence and I was ready to fight. That night she left in a huff, slamming the door behind her. I sat alone in the dark, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. I knew this was just the beginning. She was dangerous and I had to be smarter. I started planning my next moves: how to protect myself legally, how to expose her publicly if needed. This fight wasn't just about money or infidelity. It was about my dignity, my sanity. I realized I'd been naive to trust her so blindly, but now I was committed to seeing this through. I wasn't going to let her manipulate or destroy me. Not anymore. Over the next couple of weeks, I threw myself into preparing for the inevitable legal battle. I met with my lawyer almost daily, going over every piece of evidence I had collected: emails, bank statements, recordings. We drafted a timeline of her lies, her manipulations, and her schemes to claim I stolen her inheritance. I knew she'd try to spin everything in her favor, so I made sure my side was airtight. I also started hiring a private investigator to dig into her financials further. If she had offshore accounts or secret investments, I wanted to find them. Meanwhile, his behavior grew more erratic. She'd show up unexpectedly, demanding to see me, trying to guilt-trip me, calling me every name in the book. She'd throw tantrums over the smallest thing. If I didn't answer her calls right away, she'd accuse me of cheating again. I could see her desperation, and honestly, it was a little satisfying. She was losing control, and I was finally taking back mine. I refused to be manipulated anymore. One day, she showed up unannounced at my office. She barged in, furious, and started yelling that I was ruining her life. That's when I snapped. I told her to leave, that I wasn't going to listen to her anymore, and that I was done playing her game. I said I had enough evidence to prove her lies and that I was going to fight her in court. She looked at me with pure hatred, then spat. "You're just jealous of Robert. That's why you're doing this. You're insecure and pathetic." I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "No, this is about honesty, respect, and truth, and you've lost all three." That confrontation was the turning point. I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to stand up for myself, no matter how messy or painful it was going to get. I knew she'd try to smear my name, but I had enough evidence to counter her lies. I also knew I needed to protect myself financially. I started looking into legal ways to freeze her assets and prevent her from draining our joint accounts or hiding money. I was determined not to let her get away with it. One evening, she called me, trying to bargain. She said she'd drop her lawsuit if I made things right, whatever that meant. She begged me to talk, to come home, promising she'd stop her lies. I told her I wouldn't fall for that again, that I was done being manipulated. I told her that if she really wanted to settle this, she'd have to come clean, not just to me, but to everyone she'd lied to: her family, her friends, her boss Robert. I told her that I'd fight her every step of the way, and I'd expose her for who she really was. But I also knew I had to prepare for the worst. She was dangerous when cornered. I made sure my legal team was ready for her next move. I started documenting every interaction with her, saving all communications, and even hired a forensic accountant to audit our finances. I wanted to ensure I had every detail covered. My goal was to protect myself, to clear my name, and to make her face the consequences of her betrayal. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about money or cheating, it was about respect and integrity. I'd been naive to think marriage was enough to keep someone honest. Lies had cut deep, but I realized I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I was finally taking control. I was going to fight for my reputation, my dignity, and my future. Whatever it took, I was prepared to see this through, no matter how ugly it got. The worst part, I still loved her, or at least I did once. But love doesn't survive betrayal like this. It's like a poison that eats away at everything good. Now I just want to get through this to make her face her own actions and to move on with whatever life is left after all this chaos. I hope others out there realize that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to stand up and fight for yourself. That's what I'm doing now. It's far from over, but I'm not giving up. Not yet. The final stretch of this mess has been I never signed up for. After all the evidence I gathered, after countless sleepless nights and heated confrontations, I finally decided to go all in. I filed for legal separation, initiated a formal investigation into her finances, and made it clear I was prepared to go to court. Predictably, tried to fight me at every turn, calling me a liar, a jealous husband, and claiming I was the one who'd been unfaithful all along. But I had enough. I knew the truth, and I had the proof to back it up. The court hearings were intense. Lawyers tried every trick in the book, trying to discredit me, twist the facts, even claiming I'd been secretly hacking her accounts. But I had recordings, emails, bank statements, and witnesses to confirm everything. The judge saw through her lies pretty quickly. The evidence of her affair with Robert, the secret offshore accounts, the forged documents, everything came out in court. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger watching her stumble under cross-examination. In the end, the court ruled in my favor, was ordered to return the inheritance money she'd been trying to hide, and pay damages for defamation and emotional distress. She was also any claim to our house and assets, which I managed to protect with legal safeguards. The judge called her behavior deceptive and manipulative, and I could see the shame in her eyes when she realized she'd lost everything she'd schemed for. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Moved out, furious and humiliated. She tried to spin her narrative to her friends and family, painting herself as the victim, but most people saw through her. I cut ties with her completely, choosing to focus on rebuilding my life. I started therapy to heal from the betrayal, and I threw myself into work and new hobbies. The pain of everything she did still lingers, but I'm learning to live with it. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown from this ordeal. I learned that love isn't enough to keep a marriage afloat when one person is fundamentally dishonest. I learned that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, even when it's the hardest thing you've ever done. And I learned that money and trust are fragile, easily broken but hard to repair once shattered. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how small. When someone lies repeatedly or manipulates you, it's not just about the money or the affair. It's about respect and honesty. Fight for yourself, gather evidence, and don't be afraid to stand up for what's right. Because in the end, you have to live with yourself. And I can tell you, nothing hurts more than realizing the person you loved the most was capable of such betrayal. This experience has left me, but also stronger. I now know what I won't tolerate in my life again. I've learned that sometimes, the only way to truly move forward is to confront the darkness head-on, no matter how painful. And I hope anyone else out there facing betrayal finds the courage to do the same. Because, at the end of the day, honesty and integrity are what matter most. Everything else is just noise.